My name is Alexandria Webb. My pronouns are she, her, hers, or goddess, whichever you prefer. I am Tuscaroran. Uh, I am I'm indigenous. I also wrap that up in being black as well. So I am a black indigenous queer woman of color. Is how I would describe myself. Um, Other than being a limitless being of energy, um, yeah. Or being trans, I think so many times people focus on the death of trans folk. Um, so I really just like showing the joy in that as well. So that's why I like doing drag on the weekends, um, and not on the weekends whenever I can get booked. Really all over the place. Um, Taking some time off from political work, but I used to do community organizing. I'm in a professional sphere, but now I'm just kind of doing it on my own. Um, and that's kind of whenever I find the time for that, um, outside of my work schedule. I wish healthcare providers could see beyond like body parts, um, beyond what they think is absolute truth. I think oftentimes whenever we get into like scientific communities, people are always like, science explains everything. But like, we need to understand that there's phenomena that occur in the world that is unexplainable, and cannot be explained by modern science. So I wish some people would approach that concept as well in healthcare, in such knowing that like there's room for error, there's room for mistake. My knowledge is not absolute. So I wish that would be something that people would see, like not every like not everything that you see is exactly what you think it is, or still leave that room for growth in your profession, because there's always going to be a situation that you're not going to science won't be able to explain, or that you're going to have to be creative with, which is the beauty of science in healthcare, is that creative problem solving, and listening to individuals. Listening to individuals is honestly and truly the best way to provide healthcare, because I can make the best decisions about my body, better than any other person, and I think it's such a disadvantage, or we have such it. It's such a disadvantage to the individual, and to community, um, when you start thinking of your practice as absolute, or um, the guiding light of how you should steer uh, a society or civilization. When I've worked in like a nonprofit sphere, um, the providers that I would meet in those spaces, I feel like they can be, uh, I feel like they can be very like one-sided, um, and start to look at people as like statistics and numbers. And when they look at data or science, they're like, oh, well, these people have the same body parts, so we're just going to group them into one category, and not take into fact or consideration that, especially for communities of color, um, we have to think about like 50 years ago, we were just being used as like lab rats for um, venereal diseases. Bring it to today, where you have a whole entire organization, the Olympics, formed by a eugenicist, and so you have a long history of like black women literally having their children taken out of their hands, or having their bodies invaded, so that they cannot have children. Um, compound all of those things, and you have medical mistrust. I think that's something that a lot of providers need to understand. That it is an absolute privilege that you are able to put blind faith, or you have patients that put blind faith into your knowledge. but yeah, just understanding that like there is a lot of nuances, especially when it comes to communities of color. Like you know, I feel like oftentimes a lot of people are always asking, whether it's political, healthcare, or anything, they're always asking, how do we get more people of color to engage with us or to talk with us? But it's like it's really coming down it's really coming down to an individual level, and wondering and knowing that like each person that you talk to is not going to be the same. They're not going to have the same cares. Intersectionality is a big part. People are black, queer, indigenous, and there's going to be a multitude of things that they care about and a multitude of things that they want to impact as well. The life of black trans women, I oftentimes find that like especially when we talk about black trans death, and I mean, I know that we're experiencing an epidemic of that, but a lot of times when we talk about black trans death, we just kind of show a picture of that person and just say that this is their name, this is their age, this is where they died. But we never, to this day, we never talk about what that person was doing when they died. I think of all these legacies of black trans women who recently passed away, and I'm always left curious, like, what were these women doing? Were they, you know, were they working? Did they have professional jobs? Were they in nonprofit spaces? What were they doing? So I wish we would just focus a little bit more on that, the life of these people, instead of just the death, or the, you know, giving the attention to the person that murdered them. I think we should take that power back and let trans women know that these beautiful women were living life to their fullest before, you know, someone unnecessarily attacked them. So I wish that was something that would be focused more on my community. The life and the acknowledgments and accomplishments that black trans women accomplish, because I would absolutely hate for me to pass away and all people see is a picture of me and my life be summed up by one random act of violence, instead of the legacy and the truth that I've left behind for other people to not necessarily model themselves after, but to encourage them to live their own truth and live their best life as well. I would hate for that to just die with me. I feel like I oftentimes wonder what my life would be like with reparations, or roses or whatever. Reparations, roses, whatever form that may come from, whatever that may look like. But I oftentimes think about, what would that actually look like for me? And like just being able to live like your best life. What would that look like? And I think for queer trans women, a lot of times that looks like housing stability. Just being able to have a place that you can call yours, that you can dirty up and throw your clothes wherever you want to. I think that's important. I think if I had that and I didn't have to limit myself to bills or whatever, I would be able to focus a lot more on community work and doing what I love. Because having to work a full-time job and then also do community work, and then also like have to find a balance of like social life, you know, time for your man and whatnot. I think it could be really hard. So I'll be walking with like a friend down the street or something, and I'll see like say for instance Cameron Village in Raleigh, beautiful homes, beautiful as Aretha Franklin, beautiful gowns, beautiful homes these people have, gorgeous trees that have been there for hundreds of years and will be there longer than these people living in their house, and they have a swing attached to this tree, but baby, let a black person come swing on that swing, they're gonna call the cops, you know what I mean? Yeah, my dream would be for me to be able to just walk on that swing, walk on up to that tree that's been there for 100 years, it will be there for times to come, swing on that swing. See someone has a beautiful access to a yard or something, be able to, or a river, or, you know, they have beautiful beachfront property or something like that. Being able to access that property, being able to access whatever we need as a community, um, being able to say this is what I need, and being able to share resources with each other, um, without being penalized for it or shamed. Um, I really would love for our society to move past shame, um, in our actions, and shame in our thoughts, um, so that we can really just put community need above individual need. That's a real dream for mine, for myself, and one that I don't think will happen until capitalism is burned. And yeah. Yeah, I think when we focus on spirituality, I think everyone like ties it up into a specific religion, but just like getting back into like my practices or my beliefs. Uh, I believe that everything was put on this earth with a specific purpose. Like I believe that my specific purpose on this earth is to entertain and to speak, um, which is what I do. Uh, or what I try to do at least. And that's when I feel my happiest. Um, I believe trees have a specific purpose. Their purpose is to give breath back to us. Plants, their purpose is to breathe life into this earth. The water is to nourish, to cleanse. Um, Even spices, cinnamon, I feel like cinnamon attracts heat and attracts for my specific belief, money. Um, and all of these, I feel like those things specifically, and I feel I'm at my most highest form whenever I'm able to use those things, and we can all come together for all of our purposes to intertwine with each other, um, to put forth this image or provide, the world the energy that we're meant to give, or attract the things that we're meant to attract. Um, so when we talk about like healthcare, I think for a lot of people, um, that although I do guide my life by science, I think in healthcare you know, people should give up the deviance for spirituality, um, and allow that to not necessarily guide them, but you know, uh, the importance in it. I think a lot of time whenever we go into care, um, so much harm can be committed from the environment. So say for instance, like if I have to be put into a position where I'm no longer able to sprinkle my cinnamon in my hair, you know, I'm no longer able to pray to my ancestors. I'm no longer able to leave them food out. Those things play big mental health pictures for myself. So I think when it comes to care, I think it would be nice to provide care more so for a person and not for what they see, if that makes any sense. Um, because for like my grandmother, one of the things that, you know, she'll always say is do not put her in a nursing home because she's not able to touch trees anymore. She's not able to go into her garden and feel the nature, feel the dirt around her. You know, when I was younger, I never understood. I was like, wouldn't you just want to prolong your life? But for her, being able to root herself spiritually in the earth is a big part of her mental health. And I firmly believe that if you take that away from her, you're doing more harm than you are good. Whereas with science and healthcare, they would say, no, you know, you need to be hospitalized or you need to be, you know, X, Y, and Z. Um, But I think a lot of times the only reason why people need to be hospitalized and a lot of stuff is for money purposes and whatnot too. I think we could find a lot of alternatives for the practices that we have now, for sure. Um, but yeah, now some things you have to like. If you need a heart transplant, like you need a heart transplant. But like, you know, uh, I think alternatives can be found, or even just listening to a person. Like for myself, in my perfect world, um, if I know that I don't want to be on this earth too much longer, I feel like I should be able to obtain means to be able to do so, if I, you know, in a healthy manner, in a manner that doesn't mess other people up. But I absolutely do mean that I absolutely do think that we should be able to take autonomy in our own bodies and listen, and being able to listen to ourselves and know what's best for ourselves, um, instead of feeling like you have to suffer for someone else or suffer for, uh, instead of feeling like you have to suffer for someone else or suffer to please uh, someone else. What brings me joy is just having my basic needs met. Like if I'm fed and loved up on, and if I'm fed, I'm loved up on, and I feel like my social needs are being met, I am okay. Trans healthcare is listening. Trans healthcare is caring. Trans healthcare is um, providing for a specific person and not for uh, multitudes of people. I think so many times providers like to think of how their. I think so many times providers don't like to think of how their background and how their upbringing plays into the way that they provide care. Um, so I would love for providers to think about more of the implicit biases that they carry with themselves and throughout their lives and how they uphold themselves, um, and realize that uh, other people don't necessarily believe the same things that they believe, and that what they believe in isn't necessarily what's right. Like for myself, being an indigenous person, learning that my tribe actually regarded my identity as a trans being as celestial and as a person of power. Um, Learning that helped me take so much more control over white supremacy, and acknowledge it and see it. Um, just because you start seeing it in every aspect of life. Um, and so, yes, I think, you know, by taking over societies, we've just really gotten away from letting people live individualistically, um, and just taking away from communities and for the betterment of individuals. Carrying the lineage of your ancestors. I think for so long, so many of them have like not been able to speak like I have. So I feel like when they have this vessel to possess, this vessel to speak through, they're just like, woo, let's run with it, you know. Um, but I love being able to give that power back to them. Being able to speak through the ages, um, in collective time of just like healing traumas and visions meshing together. I think that's something that I love about being a trans person and a celestial being, is just knowing that the energy that I possess is limitless and cannot be measured, and um, travels across time.